Oh, and you could see me flow again to the ones you love, till the thing fits like a glove. Oh, once you were away for too long, for 2 days, I could not feel the same way again for 2 days. 48 hours and a couple of minutes doesn't mean I couldn't manage when it once again you try to rip away from my heart, and you know that you get it cause you know it's the start. Oh yeah. Okay, here is gonna be a quick one, another half episode. um I got somewhere to be. I'm gonna be somewhere very short, maybe like 15 minutes. So let's see what Cornel is up to. Only after he asked, to be honest, you didn't seem like you really wanted him to meet me. Connell closed his eyes. It was a funeral, he said. You know, someone just died. I don't think it's a really good occasion for meeting people. Well, if you didn't want to meet me, to come, if you didn't, well, if you didn't want me to come, you shouldn't, um, you shouldn't have asked me, she said. Okay, he breathed in and out slowly. Okay, he said, I'm sorry I asked you then. She sat upright in the bed beside him. What does that mean? She said, you're sorry I was there? No, I gave you the wrong impression about what it was going to be like, then I'm sorry. You didn't want me there at all, did you? I didn't want to be there by myself, to be honest, he said. I'm sorry you didn't have a good time, but like it was a funeral. I don't know what you expected. She breathed quickly through her nose. He could hear it. You weren't ignoring Marianne, she said. I wasn't ignoring anyone, but you seemed particularly happy to see her, wouldn't you say? For fuck's sake, Helen, he said quietly. Oh, wait. For fuck's sake, Helen, he said quietly. What? How does every argument come back to this? Relatable. Our friend just killed himself, and you want to start in with me about Marianne? Seriously? Well, I mean, not relatable, actually. No, it's yeah, not. Like, yeah, I was glad to see her. Does that make me a monster? Well, Helen spoke. Um, when Helen spoke, it was like a low hiss. I've been very sympathetic about your friend, and you know that, she said, but what do you expect me to do? Just pretend I don't notice that you're staring at another woman in front of me? I was not staring at her. You were in the church. Well, it wasn't intentional, he said. Believe me, it was not a very sexy atmosphere for me in the church, okay? You can trust me on that. Why do you have to act so weird around her? He frowned, still lying with his eyes shut, face turned toward the ceiling. How I act with her is normal, is my normal personality, he said. Maybe I'm just a weird person. Helen said nothing. Eventually, she lay back down beside him. 2 weeks later, it was over. They broke up. But then Connell was so exhausted and miserable he couldn't even summon a response. Things happened to him, like the crying fits, the panic attacks, but they seemed to descend on him from outside rather than emanating from somewhere else inside of himself. Internally, he felt nothing. He felt like a freezer item that had thawed too quickly on the outside and was melting everywhere, while the inside was still frozen solid. Somehow he was expressing more emotions than at any time in his life before, while simultaneously feeling less, feeling nothing. Gillian nods slowly, moving her mouth around in a sympathetic way. Do you feel you've made friends here in Dublin? She says. Anyone you're close with that you might talk to about how you're feeling? My friend Niall, maybe. He was the one who told me about this whole thing. The college counseling service. Yeah, says Connell. Well, that's good. He's looking out for you, Niall, okay, and he's here in Trinity as well. Connell coughs, clearing his throat, that dry feeling, and says, yeah, I have another friend who I would say I'm pretty close with, but she's on Erasmus this year, a friend from college. A friend from college? Well, we went to school together, but she's in Trinity now as well, Marianne. She would have known Rob. She would have known Rob and everything, our friend who died, but she's away this year, like I said. He watches Jillian write down the name on her notepad and the tall slopes of the capital M. He talks to Marianne almost every night on Skype now, sometimes after dinner, sometimes late when she comes home from a night out. They'd never talk about what happened in Italy. He's grateful that she never brought it up. When they speak, the video stream is high quality but frequently fails to match the audio, which gives him a sense of Marianne as a moving image, a thing to be looked at. People in college have been saying things about her since she went away. Connell's not sure if she knows about it or not, what people like Jamie have been saying. Connell isn't even really friends with those people, and he's heard about it. Some drunk guy at a party told him that she was into weird stuff and that there were pictures of her on the internet. Um, Connell doesn't know if it's true about the pictures. He searched her name online, but nothing ever comes up. Is someone you might talk about? Is she someone you might talk about your feelings with? Jillian says. Yeah, she's been supportive about it. She's hard to describe if you don't know her. She's really smart, a lot smarter than me. But I would say we see the world in a similar way, and we've lived our whole lives in the same place, obviously. So, a bit different being away from her. It sounds difficult. I just don't have a lot of people who I really click with. He says, I struggle with that. Do you think that's a new problem, or is it something familiar to you? It's familiar, I suppose. I would say in school I sometimes had a feeling of isolation or whatever, but people liked me and everything. Here I feel like people don't like me that much. He pauses, and Jillian seems to recognize the pause and doesn't interrupt him. Like with Rob, that's my friend who died, he says. I wouldn't say we clicked on a very deep level or anything, but we were friends. Sure. We didn't have a lot of common, like in terms of interest or whatever, and on the political side of things, we probably wouldn't have had the same views, but in school, stuff like that didn't really matter as much. We just were in the same group, so we were friends, you know? I understand that, says Jillian. And he did do some stuff that I wasn't a big fan of with girls. His behavior was poor at times. You know, we were 18 or whatever, but we all acted like idiots. I guess I found that stuff a bit alienating. Connell bites his thumbnail and then drops his hand back into his lap. I probably thought if I moved here I would fit in better, he says. I thought I might find more like-minded people or whatever, but honestly, the people here are a lot worse than the people I knew in school. I mean, everyone here just goes around comparing how much money their parents make. Like, I'm being literal with that. I've seen that happen. He breathes in now, feeling that he has been talking too quickly and at too great of a length, but he is unwilling to stop. I just feel like I left Carclea thinking I could have a different life, he says, but I hate it here. I know I can never go back there again. I mean, those friendships are gone. Rob is gone. I can never see him again. I can never get that life back. Jillian pushes a box of tissues onto the table towards him. He looks at the box patterned with green palm leaves and then at Jillian. He touches his own face only to discover that he's started crying. Wordlessly, he removes the tissue from the box and wipes his face. Sorry, he says. Jillian is making eye contact now, but he can't tell anymore whether she's been listening to him, whether she's understood or tried to understand what he said. What we can do here in counseling is try to work on your feelings and your thoughts and behavior, she says. We can't change the circumstances, but we can change how you respond to your circumstances. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. At this point in the session, Jillian starts to hand him worksheets illustrated with large cartoon arrows pointing to various text boxes. He takes them and pretends that he's intending to fill them out later. She also hands him some photocopied pages about dealing with anxiety, which he pretends he will read. I think I did the activities more than I did the readings, but the activities were helpful. I'm not going to say. Yeah, my therapist was amazing. Loved her. She prints a note for him to take to college health services advising them about his depression, and he says he'll come back for another session in 2 weeks. Then he leaves the office. A couple weeks ago, Colin attended a reading by a writer who was visiting the college. He sat in the back of the lecture hall on his own, self-conscious because the reading was sparsely attended and everyone else was sitting in groups. It was one of the big windowless halls in the art block with the fold-out tables attached to seats. One of the lecturers gave a short and sycophantic, hey, I know sycophantic, overview of the writer's work, and then the man himself, a youngish guy around 30, stood at the lectern, and thanked the college for the invitation. By then, Connell regretted his decision to attend. Everything about the event was staid and formulaic, sapped his energy. He didn't know why he had come. He had read the writer's collection and found it was uneven but sensitive in places, um, perceptive. Now he thought even that effect was spoiled by seeing the writer and his environment hemmed off from everything spontaneous, reciting aloud from his own book to an audience who'd already read it. The stiffness of the performance made the observation in the book seem false, separating the writer from the people he wrote about, as if he'd observed them only for the benefit of talking about them to Trinity students. Connell couldn't think of any reason why these literary events took place, what they contributed to anything, what they mean. They were attended only by people who wanted to be the kind of people who attended them. I wish I could highlight that, but unfortunately, this is not my book. Yeah. Because fools. Fools. They be like sycophantic. Sycophantic. I describe her as sycophantic for sure. After a small wine reception had been set up outside the lecture hall, Connell went to leave, but found himself trapped by a group of students talking loudly. When he tried to press his way through, one of them said, "Oh, hi, Connell." He recognized her. It was Sadie Darcy O'Shea. She was in some of his English classes, and he knew she was involved in the literary society. She was the girl who called him a genius to his face back in first year. "Hey," he said, "did you enjoy the reading?" He shrugged. It was all right. He felt anxious and wanted to. He said he felt anxious and wanted to leave, but she kept speaking. He rubbed his palms on his t-shirt. "You weren't blown away," she said. I don't know. I don't really get the point of these things. Readings? Yeah, said Connell. I don't really see what they're for. Everyone looked away suddenly, and Connell turned to follow their gaze. The writer had emerged from the lecture hall and was approaching them. "Hi there, Sadie," he said. Connell had not intuned, intuited. What the fuck? What is that word? Intuit. To understand or work out by instinct. Intuit. Intuition. So it is not the noun, it's the verb of intuition. So intuited. Cool. Learned something new. Had not intuited any personal relation between Sadie and the writer, and he felt foolish for saying what he'd said. "You read so wonderfully," said Sadie. Irritated and tired, Connor moved aside to let the writer join the circle and started to edge away. Then Sadie gripped his arm and said, "Connor was just telling me he doesn't see the point of literary readings." The writer looked vaguely in Connell's direction and then nodded. "Yes, same as that," he said. "They're boring, aren't they?" Connell noticed that the stilted quality of his readings seemed to characterize his speech and movement. Also, and he felt bad for attributing such a negative view of the literature to someone who was maybe just awkward. "Well, we appreciated it," said Sadie. "What's your name?" "What's your name?" "Connell." "What?" Said the writer. "Oh, what's your name?" "Connell what?" said the writer. "Connell Waldron." The writer nodded. He picked up a glass of red wine from the table and let the others continue talking. For some reason, though the opportunity to leave had at last presented itself, Connell lingered. The writer swallowed some wine and then looked at him again. "I liked your book," said Connell. "Oh, thanks," said the writer. "Are you coming to Stag's Head for a drink?" "I think that's where people are heading." They didn't leave the Stag's Head that night until it closed. They had a good-natured argument about literary readings, and although Connell didn't say very much, the writer took his side, which pleased him. Later, he asked Connell where he was from, and Connell told him Sligo, a place called Carclia. The writer nodded. I know it. Yeah, he said. There used to be a bowling alley there. It's probably gone now. Yeah, Connell said too quickly. I had a birthday party there once when I was small. In the bowling alley, it's though, obviously, like you said. The writer took a sip of his pint and said, How do you find Trinity? Do you like it? Connell looked at Sadie across the table, her bangles knocking together on her wrist. Ooh. All right. One more page. Bit hard to fit in, to be honest, Connell said. The writer nodded again. That mightn't be a bad thing, he said. You could get a first collection out of it. Connell laughed. He looked down into his lap. He knew it was just a joke, but it was a nice thought that he might not be suffering for nothing. He knows that a lot of literary people in college see books primarily as a way of appearing cultured. When someone mentioned the artistry, the austerity protest that night in Stag's Head, Sadie threw her hands up and said, Not politics, please. Connell's initial assessment of the reading was not disproven. It was a culture as class performance, literature fetishized for its ability to take educated people on false emotional journeys so that they might afterward feel superior to the uneducated people whose emotional journeys they liked to read about. Even if the writer himself was a good person, even if his book was really insightful, all books are ultimately marketed as status symbols, and all writers participated to some degree in this marketing. Presumably, this was how the industry made money. Literature, in a way, it appeared at the public readings, had no potential as a form of resistance to anything. Still, Connell went home that night to read over some notes he had been making for a new story, and he felt the old beat of pleasure inside his body, like watching a perfect goal, like rustling movement of light through the leaves, a phrase of music from the window of a passing car. Life offers up these moments of joy despite everything. Awesome, Connell. I like that. I get that feeling too. Sometimes I get it from these. Sometimes I get it from watching a cool music video or discovering a new song. But I remember a couple weeks ago, I went to like a showcase in, I think it was Hidden Hills. It was just good to be around people like that, or just people willing to share. People willing to share. It was cool. That was cool. That put me in a good mood. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. Be leaving here soon. So see ya.